Okay, abusia be mo akwa ba strong so ereba POG Media so abusia yembonra eye yensemu eye afenyo markings eye minority leader NPP na abusia eye sa ECG missing containers no afenyo ewieka abusia wababonten ababe expose NPP for omoye behind eye missing containers na HSA a no so obekaya aye afenyo markings na oye ECG board chairman na nensema all can or se timer na owo ho no saa ndwuma no saa kro no na ekoso no ono afenyo markings ohun ni nyina enti ono ankasa beboa NDC na HSA abusua omo acheche saa enkofo a omo awia aye missing containers na omo yanko na yenkonkoti ensema afenyo editudia na answer na ebeko no owo ensem kan bi afahye comment section like share ma afoforo so ensa into me enkabi aha POG Media so
and the energy minister on their heels, all in the pursuit of more than 1,000 containers belonging to ECG that vanished into thin air from the Tema ports. A committee investigating ECG's activities at the port revealed at least 1,200 containers had gone missing. 40 of those containers will later be tracked down to a man believed to be of Indian extraction. Since then, about a dozen Chinese have also been picked up in connection to the missing containers. Tonight, the energy minister, who has been on the heels of the suspects alongside national security, says government will do all it can to retrieve the cables or the cost of the cables. Yes, Dr. Jinapo.
Since 2019, this crime is being perpetrated on the state. The then government slept on it. This government will not allow this to continue. And as minister, I would ensure that we curtail this, we follow and apprehend those responsible and retrieve the containers. And wherever the containers are, we'll trace them. And those we've apprehended, we'll not just prosecute them, we'll go to court and seek an order to sell those assets there. I'm writing to the Attorney General, whoever superintended over this mess will be held liable. The management then and the head of ECG, he has to provide a justification for why he would procure 8 billion when he was supposed to procure 1.3 billion. Because if they had stuck to their procurement plan, we won't have this problem.
Now, you may ask what the cables are used for. Remember, initial reports earlier this year indicated that these containers, sometimes obtained on auction, are resold to ECG, the original owners of the consignment. But tonight, an equally damning revelation. Our correspondent who traveled with the minister reports that two of the companies visited today smelt the cables for aluminum, which is then exported. Now, remember, I said 3 companies at the start of our coverage of the story, that there were 3 companies involved in this. The third, we now know that upon a tip-off, absconded with the stolen items, escaping their own warehouse and authorities in the process. Now, while national security is on their heels, those already arrested will be made to face the law. At least that's what the minister tells us. Meanwhile, it is in Parliament where many questions are being asked. The minister, after his visits to the crime scenes, went to Parliament where this matter continues to be topical. Yes, Minority Leader Alexander A.Markin.
It's a system problem that I will any day support this minister to embark on reforms. It is true that when these containers come, there is some connivance with some customs officials, and they sell these containers, these cables that ECG needs after the supplier has been paid. They sell the container and then people resell back to ECG. Are we pretending we don't know? Instead of us to pay attention and kill the rots, then we come here, then NPP, NDC, issue at stake is scandalous. It's serious. It's not NPP, NDC matter. All these public institutions, and sometimes some of the appointees of the previous government, you see them even saying that they are professionals. They were not NPP. Now they come here and then they are dining with you. You're also happy. When you lose power, they turn around and then they are hitting our heads and we are here. Tackle the issues. $700 million is no cheap money. Go to ECG. Those companies are chasing ECG, and now because the minister is enforcing the cash waterfall, they say they get only 40 million cedis, and the 40 million cedis is not even enough to pay salary. Those officers at ECG, those directors, they are the ones who should hold them to account and stop this political football. Minister, I do not think an answer to the problem is a political inquiry. Hold the bull by the horn. And I, Kwame, will support you because I've been there. In fact, I've seen a lot of the rot in our public service system. I've seen a lot of the rot in the SOEs, but they take advantage of us as politicians. The managing director of ECG, the director of procurement, must be seen to be telling us why, as a director of procurement, he will issue a contract, and then the contract is that deliver at the port, bring bill of lading, and ask for payment without even having access to it. And then a minister is to take a blame. A minister must not take a blame on this matter.
Now, speaking on the floor of Parliament, the minister says he cannot investigate the matter to the letter.
1,346 containers. Whatever it takes, I'll bring those containers to where they ought to be. They gave us a figure of 3,000. Then they told us it had incurred demurrage of 1.5 billion. I was sworn into office on the 17th. On the 24th, I visited the harbour. At the harbour, I was told the containers were 2,500. That is what aroused my suspicion. I didn't say at the harbour that the containers are 2,500. Report was submitted just this week. It was during the presentation of the report that the committee told me that contrary to the figures they were giving you, over 1,300 containers cannot be accounted for. So those who are on social media and trying to play the political game, let me assure you, it will not deter me. Mr. Speaker, I just came from Congo. We've gone to 4 warehouses. 2 of them are factories. And what they've been doing over the years is that they buy these containers with brand new aluminum cables and then melt them into aluminum rods and export them. I've received a lot of briefing, and I'm getting to know those who are behind it. This has been going on for years. I will stop that, and it will stop right now. But Mr. Speaker, it's not just going to stop. We shall retrieve the containers of the materials. We shall prosecute the perpetrators, and we will sell the rods to recover the cost.
You're still live here on Ghana Tonight. Just gone by is the Energy and Green Transition Minister, Dr. John Abdullahi Jinapo. More on that story when we come back. Don't go away. Kwabna Edubuahin says he is optimistic. He will come out innocent when the dust settles on his case. Earlier, the Accra High Court reduced his bail conditions from 120 million cedis to 80 million cedis with 2 sureties, while his wife's conditions remained the same.
Presents as containers held at the port, 1,328 cannot be accounted for. That is very serious, and that's very alarming. 1,328 containers cannot just vanish into thin air. And I assure you that we would hold people liable for this. And whatever it takes, we'll work with the Attorney General, we'll work with the police, and ensure that whichever group, whatever people are responsible for this, are brought to book. And that we retrieve either the containers or the monetary equivalent of these containers.
Well, as striking and shocking as this is, we got details of this report that was presented to the minister, a summarized version of, we're going to put it, this very important pointers. And look at this. ECG itself reported that some 2,491 containers were not cleared and are at the ports. That was the ECG's own report that, according to the minister, he inherited. But an independent audit that he commissioned only found 1,163 of the containers at the ports. And you think about the demurrage as well, leaving some 1,328 unaccounted for. Now, the cost implication of this in terms of demurrage payment is some 1.5 billion cedis. ECG previously had a dedicated fund for clearing these containers. It was stopped in 2022 because they said there were lack of funds. Around that same time that this decision was taken to stop, ECG awarded contracts to 2 firms or companies for clearing containers. And one of the companies' activities was pre-financed by ECG. So they awarded a contract to a company based on the company's, suspected proven competence. But then again, ECG, after awarding the contract to the company to execute a particular contract, they go ahead to pre-finance the said contract that was awarded to the company. We don't know the details as to why that happened. But one of these said companies, based on this report, lacked the necessary license to even carry out the said contract. They raised questions about procurement breaches. That's not the only one. The procurement directorate had been merged with the housing and estate unit. We'll find out if that's best practice. The background checks on the director of the procurement of ECG revealed that he had no prior experience in procurement and was not even a member of any professional procurement body. So how did he find himself in this position? Nana Moisi is Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security. Nana, I appreciate your time. Thank you for joining us. I mean, this, for many, is alarming, but you are in the industry. How's all of this getting to you?
Well, Alfred, this is scandalous. It is a case of serious mismanagement, procurement irregularities, and possible corruption within the ECG. A whopping 1,347 missing containers. In fact, Alfred, this raises major concerns about accountability and financial losses, while the procurement lapses suggest systemic weakness in ECG's internal controls. This definitely indicated corruption and thievery. It's not the first time this has come to our attention, but a whopping 1,347 containers. One wonders whether really these containers came to the shores of Ghana. Is it that they just put together some documents to show that they brought in containers while this has not happened? These are not just mere, these are not small articles, small objects here. We are talking about containers, 1,347. If they are toffees and biscuits, somebody would say they pump them into bags and sacks and into pockets. But where do we find these containers? And so we support strongly the minister's position to investigate this. It's a syndicated, thing that we are seeing here. It cannot be one person. And so we must delve deep into this situation.
I see, and it's an important derivation that you make there. I mean, that the question of relevance as to whether these containers even really arrived at the ports, because if they have been moved and cannot be accounted for, and just maybe half of what is said to be there is what has been accounted for, if they were moved, there will be some paper trail, is it not, to show the movement of one point to the other. These are containers, Nana.
Definitely, it must have been recorded somewhere. And so it is good that we start from somewhere. The investigation must start, and it must be transparent as possible. And it should involve you, the media and civil society organization, to ensure that we delve into the bottom of the case because it has a huge impact on delayed infrastructure within the ECG. So we are talking about cables, capacitors, meters, and a whole lot. And I'm sure that they earmark this for infrastructure upgrade or probably expansion. And so if we are getting them missing, then of course they're going to be delayed projects, and that's also impacts on power supply. And remember, the loss of public trust in the ECG also counts. Which investor will come into the ECG when we have such situation happening? And so we must bring an end to this sort of corruption and mismanagement within the distribution segments of the power sector.
And we're seeing portions of the report also indicate that the procurement directorate had been merged with the housing and estate unit. I mean, is this best practice? From what do you do now?
Who does that? Why do you merge the procurement department with an estate department, move away the qualified procurement manager, and put the housing manager in charge of procurement? That's why we think that it's syndicated. It's a deliberate approach to fleece the Ghanaian and make us worse. It cannot be one man. It is really orchestrated to make some gains for private hands.
I say, we understand already this matter has been referred to the security agencies to investigate. Which areas should they be looking at based on your knowledge of this energy sector in this country?
It must cut across the supply chain. Who requested for this equipment, and how was it done? And was there the need to even procure them? Because as we understand today, we have some containers sitting for a long time at the harbor. It's not being cleared, and there's generating demurrage. Yet you go and still import additional ones. And so we must look right from the beginning, the request for these parts, the requisition that were raised, the supplier choosing, the transportation of this from wherever it came from to the point of clearance to storage. We must check the entire stream, and I'm sure that we'll find in there the inefficiencies and the deficiencies. Then we deal with them once and for all.
I do appreciate you for this. And Nana Mwesi, the second, is the Executive Director of the Institute for Energy Security there. Thank you very much for joining us. On behalf of the rest of the team, we do appreciate your time here on Ghana Tonight. It's always brought to you by Flamingo Paint, Simply Superior, and Kel Tackle.
Okay, abusuya we ne ensema ekoso ewo political highway so afenyo markings NHS or expose top NPP officials enye asem keto akwa ntino ono de ye nsema or de tudwa no ye beda mase se moje pene kokoti sa audio we de emaye aha POG Media so na abusuya sa missing ECG containers no ensema ebobo free echiriba no John Jenapo edeba betu just say NPP for na omo ye dedi omo kase na missing containers no kura no NDC nim hobi na say no ono no aka to say prosecution no sha say omo nhwe na obia ma meka say witch hunting abusuya enti no John Jenapo nani abri ankasa sisi and right now no wabre NPP for no ano ase ye beda mase